to become a champion right now in the most prestigious StarCraft 2 tournament of all time. One of these two is going to achieve his dream. The other will fall from grace yet again.
The next map going to be Daybreak. It is a big one. Definitely can see quite a nice macro game here. But what strategy will Stats end up choosing? I feel like soO is going to fall back into that defensive posture and try to just stop what he's going for, but we'll see. Tasteless.
It's time! Let's get hype! We're going into game number 6! soO versus Stats, a fight to become the champion of StarCraft 2 in the world! This is the GSL Code S Finals! In the bottom left, in the red, our Zerg player, he is soO. And in the upper right, in the blue, our Protoss player, he is Stats.
All right, soO has got to hold on no matter what Stats throws at him. Stats coming out blazing in this series. Definitely not what I was expecting out of him, but he's done it just fantastically well. Like, his adepts have been on point. He has been taking down far more drones than we've seen soO lose against SOS. And SOS very well known for how good he is at tearing Zergs apart.
What exactly is Stats going to do? We've seen what works, we've seen what's failed, but in this whole process, as each game, unravels, we are identifying that soO is a player that's adapting. And that's what's most important in a best of 7.
Yeah. Well,
he went in with a rush in game 1, and it totally backfired. Then Stats had some really good timing attacks that completely caught soO off guard. But in the last 2 games, soO is beginning to shut down everything that Stats has done, and this is why we've seen soO in so many finals here at the GSL Code S.
Well, this game, Stats mixing it up just a little bit. He's going for this Nexus first play, so his economy is going to be a little bit strong. Of course, there was some risk there if soO had decided to cheese early on, but will soO risk losing his 5th finals on a cheese? Sometimes that's the mark of the greatest champion of all, for instance, MVP, to risk everything on an all-in.
That's true.
But that is not what we see from soO.
It is a full house down here tonight. As the, okay, hold up. Excuse me, he beat me to it. I was going to say, let's see if he gets a Stargate. He is getting a Stargate here.
Yeah, right at that wall, and soO sees it immediately.
Yeah, he's got no interest in hiding that. That doesn't seem to be part of the strategy. So, how exactly does soO handle this? And also, how dependent is Stats going to be on that Stargate tech? You don't have to keep making out of the Stargate the whole time. Sometimes this is just an opener as a tool to do a little bit of harass and then keep tabs on the Zerg so that the Zerg has to be honest in the game.
Well, so far, he hasn't really killed that many drones with the Stargate tech, but he certainly has stasis the hell out of them. Like, unlimited stasis wards, making drones slow down so much. Will soO have a counter ready specifically for this style? I gotta wonder, if soO does lose here today, when we look back on this, how much of this is going to come down to those stasis wards? Well, between stasis wards and adepts, I think that's like the story of tonight for Stats. Yeah, and I would say in some ways, especially the stasis wards, because if you play a lot of competitive StarCraft, when you get this far in a tournament, you're supposed to have experienced everything that the other player can do. Yeah. You're a very well-oiled machine at that point in time, but I feel like this is not something that soO's really dealt with to this degree. No. And that's really scary. Definitely agree with you. Especially a nail-biter moment like this, to possibly lose in a moment where you're like, oh, what the hell's going on? He keeps doing this. Is this a thing? Well, it certainly is as of tonight. So far, this Oracle getting 2 kills. That's pretty standard overall. So having a hard time placing that Spore in that type of base. And a Void Ray out, clearing some of these Overlords now. Nothing too fancy going on either side. but a Robo before the third base going up for stats.
So there is the possibility for a different kind of timing push here. He is getting the third base as this game continues onward. By taking out all the Overlords, it becomes much more difficult for Zerg to have a good idea of what's going on. Adepts can easily mow down Lings if they're hitting around the map, so the Zerg has to be very vigilant about when those Adepts are moving and where they're going.
Yeah.
And when a Zerg loses the Overlords on that side of the map and has these Spotterlings eliminated, the map is a very dark, scary place. By the way, we have that first stasis ward going off, only freezing one drone and a few Lings. So far, so good here for soO.
Yeah, not the biggest deal. The Oracle is just kind of doing its standard amount of damage, right? Like, let's say even 3 drone kills. Okay, that's fine. You should not really be too worried as a Zerg player, but some Adepts are coming out. He's pushing back Overlords, so he's really forcing soO to play mostly blind here.
Adepts continuing to shade and poke in. There is a Warp Prism on the way. It does appear that Protoss is going for a pressure build, not so much a harass. Just trying to force Zerg into making a little bit more defensive units and a little bit less drones. And I don't think we're going to see too much aggressive activity here from Stats until that Warp Prism can get across the map.
Yeah, it's coming in right now. We'll see what it can get done. I tell you, with the amount of Overlords that he's actually killed off, this could come in pretty much as a surprise to soO. He really doesn't have much vision out on the map at the moment.
Templar Archives is on the way as we're seeing the Protoss get to that point where the army can be very sophisticated and very difficult for the Zerg to deal with. Now note, he's tagging in here instead of setting stasis traps because he's trying to figure out where does he want to position his Adepts and how much does he want to commit to this, because of course whenever you do an attack like what we're seeing here from Stats, it can be a double-edged sword. If you overextend and bleed off too many units, you're probably going to die to a counterattack from the Zerg.
So true. Here comes in the first Adept drop. Already getting several drones here. soO really slow to react. What is going on here? 7 drones already falling.
Yeah, we did not really see anything there from soO for the time being.
Yeah.
Losing 7 drones and not even really trading much of his army for that is pretty huge. And of course, the moment that you lose that initial set of drones, by the way, there's a second Warp Prism out here, so he's not backing down from this. The moment that you lose that initial set of drones, that's when things start to slow down for the Zerg.
Yeah.
It's not at the 3rd or 4th attack that you really start to feel it. It's right when it hits there. And that's when, if you have a successful attack like that, setting up the 2nd or 3rd or 4th attack is usually easier. So the first attack in harass build like this is the most important for the Protoss.
And, the earlier you kill those drones, the more it adds up over time. But Stats getting into Psystorm, getting into Charge as well, taking his 4th base. This is really a great set of tech he has. But Baneling speed is on the way. It's a little bit later than I think that really soO would like to have. But Banelings can counter all these units relatively well. The thing is, with this many Psystorms, will Banelings ever even get close?
That is the big question. Now note, he's testing the perimeter of the Zerg's base over these Warp Prisms, continuing to tag her with the Oracle. Using the Oracle in a slightly different way. It does seem that perhaps Stats wanted to back off a little bit from just using those stasis wards and go back to a more traditional play. By the way, Zerg is now gearing up, possibly to come in here and try to pressure the 4th base. Does Stats have enough? He certainly has a good amount of Templars. It will probably come down to how many good Psystorms can connect. Yeah,
now, Baneling's speed is going to be finishing up. If he has those speed Banes and can connect with some of the Zealots or High Templars, that can do great work. But look at that, 4 High Templars. They should have 2 storms apiece right now, and that's going to be really hard to get through. So we see soO teching up once again into Lurkers.
Okay, the Lurker tech is pretty scary. It's definitely one where we could see an attempted push here from soO, but also you can use Lurkers to simply fall back on and lean on that for defense.
Against this type of ground army, the push could be pretty powerful, especially going down those ramps towards the 4th. soO moving around right now with most of his army, repositioning all over the place. He has his own 4th base up, but you don't want to be even bases.
Now we want to keep an eye out for when the big battle happens, how many of the Immortals are picked off, as well as how many Templars and Archons, because that's the army set that's hard to replenish.
Yeah.
Specifically the Immortals, any Robotech, you just spend most of the game building up. Just like when Terran is meching, you want to see how many tanks is lost in a fight, because that's what they're kind of spending the whole game trying to get.
Very true. If you lose all of your Immortals, then suddenly your army value just plummets down. You really need those Immortals. They're the backbone of the Protoss army against Zerg. 8 Lurkers on the way. A pretty big warp in here.
It looks like it will be spotted here, so no element of surprise. Whoa! What is going on? He was on move command instead of attack command. Not too impactful there.
No.
We still have some more lurkers coming up over here. Meanwhile, the Zealots trying to come in here to outposition their player. Oh! Lurkers barely escaping there, and then burrowing under, and the spines coming out do so much damage. Meanwhile, soO is shutting down everything that Stats is trying to pull off.
Kills the Prism in his main base, kills all 8 Zealots that warped in the top of the map, taking his 5th base, getting his lurkers out of there, and pushing back the push here of Stats. This is all going really well right now. Forcing Stats back once again.
It's very important that the Stats utilizes the storms properly. Obviously, you don't have unlimited energy on those Templars, so any wasted storms could be an opportunity later on for soO to drive in and try to go for a kill move. Zealots right now hitting this hatchery. Some Hydras and Lurkers are coming up here to save this. Can he save it in time? The Lurkers are burrowing, and it looks like he will just barely keep that hatch alive.
Okay, the hatch is technically alive, but the way Stats has been harassing, there's a good chance we'll see him hit that once again and take it out. Does he leave anything there? I'm not so sure, but starting to move across once again. A lot of lurkers in this army, and a mothership on the way for Stats.
Good job tagging those lurkers. If you know the movement patterns of the lurkers, it's much easier to know when it's safe to engage, and you probably won't end up overextending there. However, it looks like that attack timing is going to be right now. 3 Great Storms blanket the entrance there, slowing soO down from pushing any further. It's going to be tough for soO to actually move through this area because this ramp does act like a bottleneck.
It does act like a bottleneck, but this flank he's trying. At least he got a few units here, but look at Stats, seeing that soO is on the offensive, immediately warping in to take down his 5th.
Losing that 5th is something, if Stats does indeed win this game, we're going to have to look back at it and ask ourselves if that was one of the deciding moments.
Yeah.
Now, this many Immortals can possibly take on Lurkers, but he needs to have proper vision there. You got to be careful, because if you overextend against Lurkers, you take so much damage, it's a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, you can't go up in a line like that either. You really need to come in from a wide surface area, and that is not something that we see. But with some size storms, he could do some massive damage there.
Right now, the top map control here. Whoa, hold up. A lot of bruised Lurkers there. It looks like at the last second, he's forced to back up. If Zerg loses all those Lurkers, there's going to be a period of time when Stats can run around the map dominating and could put himself in a completely winning position. So you have to be very careful with those Lurkers. They're strong, they can win the game for you, but if you get careless with them, that's going to be how you lose the series.
Well, so far, he's been doing okay in army versus army, but Stats has that 5th base. soO does not even know, as we just saw, and having a hard time even taking his own 5th base at the moment.
Again, these Zealots come in here. They're very expendable when you consider, as long as you deny this expansion, just throwing away some minerals, that's pretty much always worth it. Another overextension, bruising some of these Immortals. The Oracles then come in to try to tag to make sure that he has tabs on where those Lurkers are and what direction this game is going.
Carriers on the way as well right now. That is a great addition against this type of army. We don't even see a Spire up. There's no hive for Vipers or anything like that, so going to be tough to deal with those. soO has got to pull something together.
Oh, really good storm there.
Oh my God. So much damage put out by these size storms.
I would say that Stats does have the lead in this game. He just has to maintain it. If you notice in this position, this would be a desirable location for Zerg to expand, which is why Stats keeps poking into this area to create this really high degree of discomfort. soO seems to be gearing up to try to do a bust with a lot of Banelings and possibly just shove through this army. Meanwhile, a debated counterattack down here at the bottom, although eventually soO decides to back up and regroup.
You know, the size storms so far have just been a bit too strong for soO to deal with. If it weren't for this many storms, I feel like he could take out a lot of these Archons and have a good chance, but the storm's keeping everything safe, making soO run away. Here we go, another big engagement about to occur perhaps.
I like the positioning here for soO, but he has to get past these psionic storms first. It looks like the army now going to rotate in over here and try to defend the high ground. There are so many Banelings. If he gets a good connect with these Banelings, everything Protoss could be wiped out.
How does he do that, though, against this many Archons, Immortals, the cloak mechanic of the mothership? Like, everything here is so tough to deal with.
The Banelings are spilling in! Oh my God, the storms are perfect! And that was a huge loss of Vespian gas that he invested in there that did not pay for itself by any means.
Now, this is kind of interesting. Some Ultras being added in. I'm not sure how much I like that because of the amount of Immortals, but if he could clear those Immortals, the Ultras would be worth a lot.
Yeah, we do see that carrier tech is coming into play here. pointing out that we are really into supreme late game in this series. Also at the north here in the center, soO is attempting to expand to the top, but there is a fundamental dilemma for Zerg right now. Where can Zerg expand? They cannot be easily poked into here by the Protoss. Really nowhere. Both the top center and the bottom center are just easy pokes for stats.
But hold on, he's not out of tricks yet. That's 5 drop overlords being made. So soO is planning something crazy here. I think he's going to drop mass banelings on this army, but we'll see. Stats pulling the trigger, going for it right now, and the Storms are crazy.
He's coming in right now. soO cannot seem to get a good angle. If Stats loses this army, though, this is where his entire investment this game was at. The Mothership still taking some damage. Some Overseers here to try to spot, but it seems like there might just be too much. Oh, there's just too many Hydras.
God. More Storms coming up. A Lurker comes up to burrow as well. Huge amount of Zerglings are hatching right now, but the carriers are re-getting their interceptors. Still some Archons left underneath. Stats' army is still very tough.
Stats is hanging on, but he hasn't been able to breach the defenses of soO just yet. In fact, Stats may back up and try to recuperate here. Currently, the supplies are 187 to 149.
Oh, but look at the move that soO is going for. About 5 or 6 drop overlords getting ready, heading towards that main base of Stats. If he can drop a bunch of Zerglings and Hydras in here.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
This could completely outposition Stats here. Stats with a very cumbersome army all the way in the south and a huge attack on the heart of the Protoss' base in the north. I don't know what Stats is going to do.
He might have to recall over here, and in fact, he does. The cloak going to be very useful. Still, these Zerglings going to take a long time to clean up.
And of course, getting that army out of position means there could be other locations that Stats, or rather soO, could try to move into and do damage there as well.
Adrenal upgrade about to finish for those Zerglings that continue to walk around. Oh, the carrier barely getting away. Everything tagged. He sees where soO is, but can he stop where he is?
He's coming in now. The Hydras and the Ultras spilling in, but so many Immortals and Archons, it does make soO think twice, and he does back up. Despite the tactical genius here of soO, it appears that Stats has managed to shut this down at every angle, and this game is beginning to normalize again.
It is indeed, but he's erased a lot of the Immortals. Only 2 Immortals remain right now, and with more and more Ultras popping out, plus 2 melee finishing up, plus 3 carapace already done, these Ultras are suddenly going to do a lot of work.
As he comes in right here, right now, Protoss is regrouped in the center. Is the unit comp going to be the right setup here for Stats to fight this? We note he is getting Void Rays to try to combat some of these stronger, more bulky units like Ultras on the ground.
It's a really good choice, I would say, for Stats. He's been getting upgrades for them as well, so
I think it's a really good supplement for the fact that, yeah, he did lose a lot of Immortals back there.
Yeah.
And I think the scrambling to make cannons on the expansions, I mean, this basically sandbags the Zerg's army from getting in and actually eliminating the Nexus.
Yeah.
That way this clunky, slow Protoss army can constantly regroup, and Stats is not losing any key structures.
Well, it's still a great army. Now, a lot of Corruptors being added in at the moment. The Corruptors can do pretty well, especially with this new speed boost that they have and taking out carriers. There's a lot of Archons underneath, so the Ultras have to stay alive and keep those Archons back from the Corruptors.
I want to point out, guys, every single expansion on the map has been taken. We could get into a game where these expansions are mined out. And in that case, I think it could be Protoss with the stronger army. He just has more poke ability here.
Yeah, endgame Protoss Air is like just awesome. You know, Storm plus Archons plus carriers and Mothership is so tough to deal with. soO still has a chance here, though. He has quite a few Corruptors coming up with this army.
And now we're going to see soO try to fight back, but first he's going to be chewed up through all of these storms. Corruptors are now coming in here. Great storm soO there by Stats. Is this enough? Hitting all of these air units. The Corruptors do go down. It's just some Hydras and some Ultras here on the low ground.
Does he have enough Hydras to actually push through? Very few Interceptors actually left over, and suddenly we see Stats having to turn around.
16 more Hydras on the way. Stats has remade a bunch of Zealots to soak the damage on the ground so the carriers and the Void Rays can continue to deal it. The hatch is low. He's targeting it, and it does go down.
Oh, this is bad news right now for soO. He's having to evacuate with everything he has. More Immortals and Void Rays being produced. If Ultras start to be made by soO, he is going to be in a lot of trouble. But maybe if he can hold on with Hydras, he can make something happen.
Now the expansion in the bottom center is being filled up with probes here. Archon's morphing down there with cannons there. Also to help defend. Right now he's pulled some drones here with this attack. He wants to have something to tank in here in the front. The supply right now for Protoss is huge. I don't believe that soO can break this. He's losing too many Hydras right now.
These Psy Storms are out of control. soO microing his heart out, but this could be the end, and GG!
GG, unbelievable series. Stats has done it. And soO, for the 5th time in a GSL Codes Finals, has managed to get 2nd place and not achieve his dream of becoming